Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Take It With a Grain podcast. This is episode 6, and we're going to switch things up a little bit. Usually we do 3 segments. We kind of chat about those, whether it's Oklahoma lifestyle, real estate, entrepreneurship, even, real estate for agents, real estate for consumers, just whatever it is.
Yeah.
Today we're going to cover one topic and one topic only, but we're going to go into mega detail about this topic because it's important.
Yeah.
So we're going to cover the home buying process today, from the very beginning when you first get your approval or you talk to your realtor to the very end when we're handing you guys over the keys, and even further than that, because a transaction doesn't stop at the closing table. Hardly ever does it.
No.
So,
and I think that this is the question, honestly, in the last week I've seen several times is like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I want to buy a house, but I don't know where to start, or this is my first time doing this. And, we get that a lot. So
I've seen a ton of messages in the last week that are like, I've never done this. Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to bring for you? And I'm like, I don't need anything from you at first. I need you to talk to a lender. So that's what we're going to get into. The first absolute important thing that you should do is talk to a lender. Of course, if you have the funds necessary up front, that's a step you can skip.
Yeah, if it's a cash transaction, but most first-time home buyers are typically not. I mean, you have the one-offs, of course, that do have that cash. Maybe they got an inheritance or they have just saved up and rented for a really long time, and they are going to make that a cash transaction. But the greater majority of the first-time home buyers are not cash.
So how important is it, instead of when someone new reaches out to you and they're like, hey, I've never done this before, what do you say to them? Because especially, like you said, if they're a first-time home buyer, like, are they going directly to a lender first? Are we looking at homes? Okay.
We're absolutely going to the lender first. And the way I explain it sometimes, too, is like, listen, you may be able to get approved for more than you actually are comfortable spending. So I think some people are like, well, do you not trust that I can get a loan or whatever? And they might get a little defensive, but that's not the purpose behind it. Is not to make sure that you can get qualified. Of course, that's part of it. But if you can get qualified, how much are you qualified for? But deeper than that, what are you actually comfortable spending? Because sometimes those numbers aren't the same.
Right.
You might get qualified for $250, but really you're only comfortable with the down payment required and your monthly mortgage payments at closer to the $200 range.
Yeah.
So we don't want to look at properties at $250 when you're not comfortable. Like, yes, you can buy it, but does that put you in a position where you're not comfortable long term? So let's have those conversations up front, and that all comes from the lender. So, making sure that you are qualified, what you're qualified for, but most importantly to me is, where are you comfortable? Right. Where's your comfort number?
Well, and that brings up 2 really good points that you discussed. So the pre-approval amount versus what your budget is and what you can afford oftentimes are two very different things.
Yeah, they're usually not, a huge difference, especially for first-time home buyers, but they might be different. Right. I've had buyers that are like, hey, I am approved to $300, but I really want to stay under $200.
Yeah.
So we're looking at very different properties, talking a $200,000 property and a $300,000 property.
Yeah.
And you don't want those customers to look at a $300,000 property, fall in love with it, and then now they really want to be at $200, but nothing compares to that $300.
Right.
So
and that was my second point. Yeah, I was going to say, you don't want to set yourself up for heartbreak, which is why we wanted you guys to talk to the lender first.
Yeah, because then you're just comparing everything to that one house, and nothing's ever going to measure up to it, because really we're trying to spend $100,000 less.
Yeah.
Well, those properties $100,000 less are not going to measure.
No, not at all. Whether
and that's
it's smaller land or the condition, maybe the year built. Some of those homes aren't going to stack up. And so don't set yourself up for failure by going and looking at things before the pre-approval.
Yeah, and that's like the most important thing really about the lender. And then also knowing like what loan type and what loan programs work best for you. I get a lot of questions about that. Well, do I qualify for this? I don't know. That's not, that's not my part of this. Let's get you hooked up with one of our great lender partners who can look at that with you.
Well, and especially, it doesn't even have to be, you can make tons of money at your job now, but if you haven't been there for a certain amount of time, depending on the program you pick, again,
there's so many factors, and that's why it's just best to get with the lender, be completely upfront and honest about all the things about liquid assets that you have, all the debts that you carry. Let them know just everything. Don't hold anything back. Tell them everything.
They're not your enemy.
No, and they don't care. They're not judging you.
Right.
They're not judging you. Or if you've had this may not be first-time home buyer, but like if you've had a foreclosure in the past or something like that, the more upfront and honest you can be with the lender, they're not going to judge you. They want to lend you money.
Right.
So it's like, what programs can you qualify for, and then how is that best going to serve you? Because that may also determine the properties that we're looking at. Do we need to meet certain specifications? Can we look at a fix and flip? Like, what are our options?
So that first conversation, likely someone comes to you and says, hey, what do I do? We're going to connect you with one of our lenders. Again, we have several options to choose from, and they're all wonderful.
Yeah, depending on your particular situation, it may, we may hook you up with a different one versus the next person.
Right.
Because we have different lenders that are great at different things.
Right.
And have different programs and products that'll work for different customers. So.
Yeah. So after that conversation, once we've figured out what we are pre-approved for, if there's any extra steps we need to do to get that pre-approval, a lot of times people are already looking at homes online before they even start that process, really. Absolutely. But I think the next important step is to get your agent, your realtor, whoever that is, to set you up on an auto search that'll send homes to your email. Yeah. Because like I said, you want the pre-approval, and then we can start sending you stuff that's within your range that you're comfortable with, and then maybe we get 3 or 4. But what's awesome about that is we can send properties that are maybe coming soon, or as soon as there's a price reduction, we can send that information to you.
Have that very automated.
Yeah, so that's a great program for your agent to set you up on as well. Mm-hmm. But just being close with them and saying, hey, is there anything you know of? Because a lot of times we know of properties 2-3 weeks before they hit the market.
Yeah, that's one of the things about having a good plugged-in agent. Our office specifically, we meet once a week and we talk about all those coming soon. So it's like, hey, these are the things that I have coming up, and the agent across the table may be like, hey, I'm the perfect buyer for that. So getting kind of a leg up on those off-market properties. So letting that agent know really what you're looking for, where
it is,
what do you really want. You might be able to get information about some of those properties a little ahead of time, and
it might be better than the information that you're getting online. Because I know when I search through homes and I'm looking for my buyers, it's like you have Facebook Marketplace, several other online sources,
search engines. There's a million of them.
It gets hard to track not only what's available, but also what's had a price drop or what is coming soon. I don't even think most of them do coming soon.
No, we don't see that a lot. And I think it happens more in the metro areas, but we don't see it so much
not in rural areas. Yeah. But that's why it's huge to have an agent that knows what's going on in the market, can tell you, hey, I just sat down with so-and-so and they have this listing coming that fits your exact criteria that you're looking for. So that's a huge part of the process. Then the third step really would be to showing. So we've got the pre-approval, we've got the home search and the list. Yes. We're going to go ahead and get into showings. And what I tell my clients, this may be different for you, but I try to mirror other agents and what they're doing that's successful. But we're going to pick 3 or 4 that we can go see in a day. Out of maybe we have 20. We're going to pick our top
Where are you finding 20 in rural Oklahoma?
Not here.
I'm like, where you be finding?
For example, we went down to Broken Bow.
That's different. Yeah. So depending on your market. So if you are looking in a smaller community, there may only be 3 or 4. Yeah. So really just depends on your area. So I think setting realistic expectations with that too. So are you looking in the metro? Are there 15 to 20 homes that fit?
Right.
Okay, how do we narrow that down to your top 3 or 4?
Yeah, that way we're not looking at 20 homes.
And I've done that. I've made that mistake with customers in the past, and we went and looked at 14 homes the very first time out. Well, then they're overwhelmed. They have no idea what we just looked at. Everything runs together. They don't know which home was which.
Yeah.
So that gets tricky. In a smaller area, you don't have
near as many
to
options
pick from. So, you just pick the ones that do work. Let's go check these out. And also sometimes with that situation, you have to have a little patience.
Right.
So
yeah,
if that perfect home isn't there right now, like let's keep this drip campaign going, figure out, and then as soon as a property does hit the market that does fit what you're looking for, you're already pre-approved. You've already looked at some homes, so you know what you're looking for. Let's go look, and we're ready to pull the trigger if it does fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're ready to go. We can write an offer right then.
Yeah.
So
I usually, like you said, bigger areas, I try to stick to 3 or 4 because then you make the mistake of it running together. Yeah.
Yeah, at least the first time. And now if it's a buyer that's coming in from out of town and they're like, we have 24 hours.
Right.
All right. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
We're going to look at them all. We're going to take good notes.
Because they have to, yeah. And so, but that person that's maybe, local to the area, hour max drive, like, let's go see a couple and then we'll tune because you'd be surprised after you've looked online for months and months and months and you finally go and see the one you thought was the one, you're like, I hate it. So wrong. Yeah.
I hate it.
So you end up changing your criteria a little bit. So that's why we're like, okay, 3 or 4, let's
really
reassess
dial
from there.
This in. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we went down to Broken Bow and we saw like 8 or 9, which granted they were driving 5 hours, happy to do it because it was a 3-hour drive for myself. But, we finally got through those 8 or 9 and they're like, we really like 2, and they narrowed it down to 2. And we might end up going back to see those a second time because everything does blur together when you're looking for homes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you need around too. I showed recently a bunch of new construction homes, and a lot of them were very similar floor plan, but they had different finishes. And then the lot set in a different part of the neighborhood, and it had a different style of yard.
Yeah.
Had a different neighbor on the backside. So
I mean, you're talking about homes that have the same square footage but different layouts and like a different kitchen.
Yes.
Most of the time.
So that day we did all of them, and then we were like, okay, we're gonna go back to this one. And then she was like, actually, I don't like it.
Actually, I hate it.
Yeah, and the home that like she loved online, we walked in the door and she just looked at me and she was like, no.
Right.
Like, she knew immediately that it was a no. So it doesn't always match up. So that physically going and looking at the properties is extremely important. And then readjusting your expectations and your wants and needs after that first round.
Right.
Assuming nothing hits, I mean, you may fall in love round 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're like, this is it. I'm in love. This is what I'm doing.
This is the one.
Yeah, this is it. And game over. But
let's say they did find the perfect one after all that looking. What comes next after that?
Now it's your offer.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of circle back to the lending side. So what things were discussed with your lender? Do you need seller concessions? What loan type are we? So is there anything that we need to be really looking out for up front? So structuring that offer is really what comes next.
Right.
And that is going to play lots of different ways depending on exactly what you need. But that's where it becomes really important that your agent and your lender are communicating.
Right. Absolutely.
They need to be communicating.
If they're not on the same page, that offer is going to be weird.
Yeah. So, if your agent doesn't know financially what you actually need, and then they submit an offer, we get an accepted deal, send it to the lender, and they're like, they can't do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, what the heck?
What the heck?
Yeah. So, why didn't you tell me?
Well, and a lot of time I feel like the lender maybe tells the customer, but the customer doesn't deal with that verbiage every day. So maybe they didn't completely understand what the lender was actually saying. So the lender's like, hey, you do need closing costs or you need concessions. And then the agent asks the buyer, and the buyer's like, I don't know.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Yeah, we didn't need that. That wasn't ever discussed.
And then the lender's like, yes, they do.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that's in there. So making sure that your agent and your lender are in communication is super important. The lender's not going to give away confidential information.
Right.
If there is something between you and your lender that's confidential, but also remember that your agent isn't judging you.
And also your lender can decode what you're saying and reinterpret it to your agent in a way that's not giving away your confidential information, because that's a huge part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and I've, we get pretty deep into people's personal business a lot in this industry, and it's never, I can't think of a time that I've been like, oh my gosh, I'm really judging the lifestyle choices that this customer has made. It's like, okay, these are the hurdles and things that we're dealing with. So how do we best serve this client? So what's the best way to navigate this and get this customer in a home? How do we get
Yeah.
them? How do we make this make sense and get them in this home?
As real estate professionals, no matter realtor or lender, you kind of wear a lot of hats. And one of them
Yeah.
that we wear is a therapist. In a lot of cases, I mean, you do get into some pretty deep personal information, but it's nothing to be ashamed of.
And it's
Like, we're
honestly
all
helpful.
people.
Like,
Yeah.
if you just be honest with your agent or your lender, and they truly know the depth and the scope of your situation, good or bad, then they can help guide you on the best way to navigate that offer.
So what are the things that you're asking your clients about, especially your buyer clients, when you're writing that offer? Because we're looking at a bunch of different moving parts. You have the purchase price, anything that they want to stay with the property. It could be the closing date. I mean, what are those things that like you talk to them about to make sure they're ready to go?
Yeah, that's one of those conversations about what's important to you. So one of the ways I structure that conversation often is, what's more important to you, the total price we're paying for the home or the amount of money that you're keeping in the bank right now?
Right.
Now, this is assuming that we're working with a buyer that has the ability to cover their own closing costs.
Right.
They might not.
Right.
Honestly, we deal with that a lot.
And our lender will tell us that and say, hey, we need
That's a lender
closing
conversation.
costs.
We need closing costs, or we are flexible with that. We have room. That's a conversation the agent and the lender need to have. But if it is an option, if we have the option, the conversation is, what's more important to you?
Right.
The total purchase price or keeping money in the bank right now?
Yeah. And it's different for everybody. I mean, especially when it comes to a closing date, because maybe you are selling a house to buy this one, or your lease is up in October, or it could be up by the end of next month on the 30th, and we're like scrambling to get stuff done. So maybe that does have to happen quicker.
Yes.
So making sure what is important to the client, or as you as the buyer say, hey, you know, our lease is up and we need somewhere to stay. We're not trying to get a hotel for the days in between.
Well, and like the point of what I was saying too is like, okay, so what type of property are we buying, or is there things you want to do to it? Do you need to purchase furniture? Are you a first-time home buyer? Do you own furniture? Do you need to buy that? Are you wanting to paint the entire house?
Right.
So this stuff costs.
Does it need flooring before we
need flooring?
Right, like whatever it is.
Yeah, this stuff costs money. So can you pay your closing costs and still be able to afford to do those things?
Right.
Or do we need to pay a little bit more for the house, get the seller to cover
some
those costs? It's
yeah.
not going to make a big difference in your monthly mortgage payment. We're maybe talking $100 max.
Right.
And then you have that money in the bank to, once we have closed, you can go buy that new couch.
Right.
You can update the flooring. You can paint.
Right.
Where if you pay your own closing costs, pay a little less for the home, you got nothing left.
Right.
And that may not be
In
the
most
case,
cases.
but it is often the case. Are we depleting our savings and our liquid assets to get this deal done?
Right.
And if you're okay with that, you don't need to do anything post-close.
Yeah.
Cool, let's do it. But like, that's the conversation I want to have, is like, do you understand that? Is this comfortable for you?
Yeah.
If it's not, let's re-navigate how we're structuring our offer.
Yeah. And a lot of times you might know that information before you ever even talk to the client. Maybe the agent to the lender conversation of like, hey, they're going to need closing costs, and you know, maybe funds are low, but truly knowing what your client is needing, because maybe they're getting furniture gifted to them or whatever it is. You know, you never know what every situation is about, but that's why we stress be clear to your agent and your lender.
Be open with the agent.
Yeah.
Really let them know, because the agent's going to know how to navigate the deal to make it work best for you, the more honest you are with them.
Yeah. So once we have the offer in, we go into negotiations, which is one of my favorite parts about it, because again, we can get, you know, however much off the purchase price.
Sometimes we have to get creative.
Yeah, we can get closing costs, or we can do like a, you know, contingency deal that, you know, they have to wait for the buyer to sell their home somewhere else, and you're dealing with another agent who's also dealing with buyers, you know. So there's so many like intricate parts to it, but let's just say clean cut deal, buyer that's ready to buy, seller that's ready to sell, and we're maybe $15,000 apart on negotiations. What are you advising your client on there?
$15,000's a lot.
Yeah.
Depending on the price point.
It is, yeah. I mean, especially when we're talking about first-time home buyers that are maybe under the median average of home prices.
I don't think there's any like clear-cut answer. I think every situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, we're going to circle back to what does the customer need?
Right.
And sometimes if you are really far apart, it becomes an agent-to-agent conversation of like, okay, here's things that are super important to my buyer, and here's things that my buyer needs to make this deal work.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your seller situation. What does your seller need?
Yeah. How can we make this a win-win for everybody?
Where is the win? How do we structure this that this buyer that wants to buy this home can buy it, and the seller that wants to sell this home can sell it, and everybody walks away feeling like they won.
Right.
And no one walks away feeling like they got the short end of the stick.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
that gets really important with agent to agent conversations. And if you are super far apart on a deal, sometimes it's good to just pick up a phone and be like, okay, what can we do? And sometimes there's not a solution.
No,
and that's just the reality, is sometimes you're not going to find that middle ground.
Right.
And that's okay. That just means that house is not the one that you were supposed to get.
Everything happens for a reason.
Am I going to do everything in my power to make that happen if this is truly what you want? 110%.
Correct.
But we can't go over and above where your comfort levels are and what you're able to do just because you want this house.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I think a lot of times during negotiations, or even just the word negotiation gets construed because it's not.
It automatically triggers negative thoughts in people's head.
In my head, especially before I got into the industry, I was like, okay, there's two guys sitting across a long table like we're sitting at now, and they're like just hashing it out, and it's got to be like the bigger guy wins and we're yelling at each other, and it's not that. But I mean, as a consumer, you don't really see that side of it. You just hear, hey, well, the seller said they can do this, what do we feel about that? Is that going to push us over our edge? Like, where are we comfortable, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So, but I mean, I think that is what people think about it. They're like, oh, well, we have to bully the other side and we have to like pound them into the ground.
And I don't love that mindset when it comes to real estate deals. Like, am I going to work my hardest and do the best I can for my customer? Absolutely. Does that mean that I have to run over someone else in the process?
Right.
No, it does not.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't. Beating down the other side of a transaction doesn't make you the better agent.
Right. Well, and not even from an agent perspective, but I think when people are offering, and let's say like they want to throw in what they'd call a lowball offer, and they're like, well, we don't want to insult them. You don't know if you're going to insult these sellers or not.
You don't know. You never know. They might be completely open to that.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know that seller situation.
Yeah. Especially now more than ever, but definitely, there's no harm in asking is what I tell my clients. So I'm like, if you want to throw in an offer.
If this is really where your head's at and you really think is what's fair, like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Like, the worst thing they're going to tell us is no.
Right. No? Okay, cool.
Do I condone, like, lowballing on everything just because you can? No.
Absolutely.
I don't.
Yeah. Right.
I don't. I don't.
Yeah.
But.
That being said, if that's where you're comfortable.
Well, and if it's what makes sense, like. If you can justify it and you're like, okay, this property, we've looked at comps and this property is listed high, and it really needs a brand new roof, and it has foundation issues, whatever that
X, Y, and Z.
X, Y, Z. Like, there's a million things that could be.
Right.
Can you justify the low offer, or are you just doing it just to see what you can get away with? Like,
right.
Those are two kind of different situations for me. But.
Yeah, right. But make sure you have those numbers to back up, and your agent can help you with those numbers as well. And that's what we're here to do, is to run the comps and advise you on what would be a strong offer. So definitely the negotiations part, like I said, one of my favorite parts of the deal, because we are able to accomplish a lot of great things for some home buyers. We were talking last week about my buyer in Texarkana. Of course, I sent her out as a referral, but they ended up going to the closing table and not bringing any money, because they were able to negotiate not only the purchase price, but seller concessions into the deal. They had some assistance in other places from the VA, but that they were able to negotiate that for them, and they ended up actually getting money at the closing table that they could use towards like things like furniture.
That doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't. It's a very rare circumstance, but it can in some situations. It's super particular to your exact situation. I mean, you're going to be able to do things. If any
agent is like, this is exactly how we need to do this, and this is the end all be all, and this is how this is going to happen.
Right.
They've lost their mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because there's no one size fits all to negotiating a real estate deal.
Right.
There's not. They're all different. And it all boils down to what is the win for your customer.
Yeah. I mean, let's find a win-win for both because, like you said, I think that if we can find an end goal that everyone's happy with and that works.
The best deal is the one that the buyers and sellers both walk away from the table with a smile on their face.
Exactly.
That is where we win.
Yeah. I was told this by an agent at one point, and I love the win-win, but he was like, some deals, it's good to feel like both sides maybe lost a little bit, but not more than the other side.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as long as, person A, the seller, and person B, the buyer, came out of that deal feeling like they weren't done any type of way worse than the other side.
The deals that are hard for me are when one side is like, okay, I have just given and given and given and given and given and I'm done giving. Like, those deals are tough for me because I don't ever want a customer to feel that.
Which we're going to touch on too today, because a lot of your negotiations in the beginning, you have to stay conscious of, okay, well, we still have to get through inspections, appraisals, which we're about to touch. So
we're not done.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be conscious of what you're putting in front of that seller when you're offering on their home, because if you ask for the moon from the start, well, they're probably not going to be too lenient if they accept that offer.
When we go to the next step.
Yeah. So, okay. So step 4 or 5, I can't remember, but after we put in that offer, let's say it gets accepted.
We have an agreement.
We have an agreement from buyer to seller. We're ready to go. What does those next steps look like after we have an offer accepted?
First thing, well, you got to get the contract to everybody so everybody can kind of get their own balls rolling. By everybody, I mean title, lender. And then we're scheduling inspections for that buyer. So whole home inspections, termite inspections. If we have questions about the roof, we'll go ahead and schedule a roof inspection. If we have questions about foundation, we'll go ahead and schedule that. Any concerns that we have, but most generally, at least that whole home inspection and a termite inspection. And
we're always going to recommend a whole home inspection, like you mentioned, and the termite inspection, because those are things, you can talk about, the inspection, and they can go over it with you and say, hey, this looks like it could be something, but really contact a roofing professional or
let's look at this a step further.
Yeah, a plumbing professional, because your general home inspector is going to look at everything.
Yes, and the very, very surface level of everything.
Yeah, they wear all the hats and they do all the things.
But they'll let you know what your red flags are. So, like, hey, the roof looks like it has some hail damage. Okay, let's go ahead and get a roofer out. Or, hey, these cracks on this edge of the house in this corner look a little concerning. Like maybe there's some settlement. You should get a foundation company out.
Yeah.
So, then we take those next steps and go ahead and order those next inspections.
Right.
If needed. It's not always needed, but sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is.
Or they're like, hey, there's something going on with this plumbing and I really don't know exactly what it is, so you need to get a plumber out here.
Yeah. You want to guess one of my favorite sayings about our inspections that is just completely misconstrued is the fact that an inspection either passes or fails.
Yes, inspections are not pass or fail. I'm so glad you brought that. When people are like, well, will this pass inspection? I'm like, well, it doesn't really work like that. Really.
Define pass.
Yeah, define pass. Sometimes the inspection is just for the buyer's knowledge, right? So that inspector is going to look at every little thing. And the other thing I tell my customers is like, don't be shocked when this report comes back and it's 60 or 70 pages, because that's very normal. Like, it doesn't mean the house is going to fall apart.
You know what's not normal is a 2-page inspection.
That would be concerning.
I've never seen one of those.
That would be concerning, because I would be like, well, that inspector was not very thorough.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff, and the other thing I try to tell customers too, is the inspection report is not a punch list.
No.
Just because it shows up on the inspection report doesn't mean that these are things we need to get the seller to fix.
Right.
Are there things on there that we do? Yes.
Right.
How I kind of explain it is a lot of this is for your knowledge, right? We just want you to know, especially on older homes, like it's going to have stuff, right? This home was built in 1960. It's lived some life.
Right. It's going to have some reverse polarity.
Have some stuff. Yeah. So one of the things that I tell buyers is like, this is not a punch list, but what it is let's look at this and decide which items on here would be a deal breaker for you. If the seller doesn't fix these things, I will not buy this house.
Right. Yeah. Because there are some bigger things, like you
What
said,
is
the
that?
roof, the foundation, maybe the electrical needs completely
Yeah, so
updated.
maybe there's an issue with the way the water heater is wired in and it's concerning to the buyer. That's not something they feel like they can fix. Or I'm trying to think of examples that are smaller but still justifiable.
I was gonna say,
a cracked window,
Yeah.
windows are cracked.
What's the number one like small thing that you see on an inspection? Every time you get an inspection report, you know it's going to be on there.
GFIs.
The GFIs, I see that a lot. I see that a lot, actually.
I don't know. I can't tell you the last time I had an inspection report that didn't have either GFIs or reversed polarity on outlets.
I see the smoke detectors.
Smoke detectors.
But it's like, or like a missing outlet cover.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's something small like that.
Like 90 cents.
Yeah.
Just screw it on.
Screw it on. We can all use a screwdriver.
I'm like, do you want me to do that for you? Now, with that being said, the missing plate covers can be an appraisal requirement,
right.
So kind of jumping ahead. But,
yeah.
There's other things. But that's kind of how I like to explain it. It's like, what are the deal breakers?
Yeah.
So
we're going to get this inspection so you guys know what's going on with the house, and then we're going to
general knowledge, is there anything on there that's like, this is absolutely a deal breaker no matter what? Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove ourselves from this contract. But what are the things that you would not buy the house if the seller doesn't fix?
I had a deal at one point, which I won't name names, but we finally found a buyer. We went under contract. Everyone's happy and excited. Inspection came back, and there were several major items that needed to be fixed. And so reasonably so, we tried to negotiate a little bit, and skipping ahead again, but we tried to negotiate a little bit, and it just ended up not working out. But it's because the buyer wasn't comfortable with those things, and that is the buyer's right to do so.
Absolutely. And there's timelines on that. So, you have to pay attention to your timelines. Your agent needs to know when those time periods begin and end.
Right.
And make sure that you do things within those or extend those if you need additional inspections or something like that. But yeah, I mean, if you get that inspection report back and the buyer freaks out, and now sometimes buyers freak out just because the report's long, and it's like, okay, let's rein this in.
Right.
Let's have realistic expectations. But sometimes there are things where it's like, there is very obvious foundation problems. Maybe the foundation bid we got is $30,000.
Yep.
And the buyer's like, well, even if the seller fixes it, I'm still going to be uncomfortable with this house. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Let's remove ourselves.
Exactly.
So there's lots of different situations, but again, it's kind of the same thing. There's no one size fits all to how to negotiate that. Every situation is going to be different. Every list of items that a buyer is comfortable or uncomfortable with is going to be different, because maybe it's a married couple and husband is super handy.
Right.
And he's like, listen, I can fix all this little stuff. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But
it could also be the budget doesn't support it, or maybe they're unable to fix those things themselves. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different caveats to, like, okay, we don't know what's going to be on the inspection report. I mean, you could love a house, and then the inspection comes back and there's a major, major issue, which we hope is never the case.
Right.
But the reality is, like, you can't get too, like, intertwined with the idea of, like, hey, we're under contract, this is going to go through, because there's so many things that can
there's still lots
it.
of hurdles that you have to get over before you actually get to that finish line.
Yeah, so inspections come through, and let's say we're good with it. There's a few small things, which usually there is. Maybe there's one big item, for example's sake. We're going to go into what's called TRR period, which this comes right after your inspection. Usually, at least here in Oklahoma, our inspection periods are 13 days by default, which includes...
Yes, if you don't make any adjustments to your contract.
Yeah, so you have 13 days to either find an inspector on your own as the buyer or
make that
get
more
recommendations.
Clear. So you have 3 days from final signature before your time reference period starts, and then your actual inspection period is 10 days.
Right.
So 13 total days after last signature.
From the moment you go under contract, So... get with your agent, find a good inspector. We've got plenty of awesome recommendations as well on inspectors. But we're going to go into what's called TRR period right after the inspection period. And that's where we can kind of negotiate what we want to be fixed by the seller.
Yeah.
So let's say there are some foundation issues, and then there's a few small things here and there. I usually advise my clients to let's ask for the things that would be deal breakers, because if we can screw in a light bulb or put a dome like a dome cover over, you know, a light fixture.
Well, and
you know,
it's like, okay, so if you moved in tomorrow and that was like that, are you going to actually fix it?
Right. Yeah.
If the answer's no, then we probably don't even put it on there.
Yeah.
Because it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
So let's talk about the stuff that is a big deal.
Yeah. Is that foundation needing adjustment? Like, can we realistically do that and ask the seller to do that? I mean, that's not something you're going to know as a buyer, and maybe your agent won't even know until you guys ask, but that's why you get that 7-day period to negotiate those things. That way you can get bids for like foundation repair,
can start
or
getting their bids.
Yeah. So
and then they can get a response in, because maybe there is foundation issues, or it needs a roof, and the seller was not aware of that ahead of time. Well, now they do know that, and now the price of the home doesn't make sense where it's at. You know, so there's lots of
and that comes into your initial offer too. Is like, did we ask for the moon when we initially offered? Did we ask?
Did they have room? Right. Are they able to do any of this stuff?
Right. Or are they just going to tell us, hey, like, we already are giving you this much in closing costs? You know, is that even going to be possible? You know, so if you are pretty fair with your initial offer and it's pretty clean cut, maybe you can ask for a little bit more.
As long as the seller doesn't feel like initially they're taking a loss, they're going to be more likely to work with you.
Yeah.
In general, that's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
None of it is. That's the thing about real estate. Every contract's going to be a little different, but I mean, we could talk all day about TRR negotiations, but I think the consensus is that's where we ask for the important things. A inspection report is not a punch list.
Right. We're not going to just send the inspection report and be like, have fun. You know, I've had that before, and I'm like, okay, well, realistically, you know, my people are willing to do this much, you know, and maybe it isn't the whole list, but realistically, you know, you're going to have some outlet covers missing more than likely. They're pretty common missing feature.
In an older home.
You know, you're going to have, you know, the smoke alarms that aren't missing or are missing or aren't there. You know, don't have batteries in them.
There's not enough of them.
Yeah, they could be not up to code, like whatever it is. So don't treat it like a punch list. Get with your agent on what they think is fair and what you guys need before you move into it. Because it is, I mean, there could be a roof that needs to be replaced, or maybe there's a part that the HVAC unit needs that it needs to function properly. Like, you never know what could go on. But 7 days for the TRR, I think, is plenty of time to negotiate those things.
And you can always extend. I mean, if you are waiting on a bid or something like that, you can extend those periods.
Yeah, you can always extend. But I think we're getting really close to the end here, at least for most contracts when we come down to the wire. But we're looking at appraisal next.
Once we have, you know, agreement on those, the seller can get started. They have until the actual closing date to complete any of those repairs that we ended up agreeing to. And usually somewhere around that time, the appraiser comes to do their field inspection.
Right.
So depending on the loan type, depends on the appraiser. So what we're looking for there is the appraiser to get that turned back into the lender. And then did we meet value? Two things that we need to know.
I was going to say, what is he doing when he goes out?
He's making sure that we meet value. So is the house actually worth what we're paying for it?
Right.
And then are there any repairs that need to be made for a couple of different reasons? So if you have VA, FHA, USDA, maybe there are repairs that have to be made to bring it up to those specific qualifications.
Right.
That can be a reason for repair requirements on an appraisal. Another reason can be, I think people have it in their head, if it's a conventional loan, there will be no appraisal requirements. That's not true.
Are.
Like it can still happen. And usually those come from either the property isn't in good enough condition to meet value. So the appraiser will throw some repairs in there to bring it up to the higher condition level to be able to do that. Or it's missing, like now, didn't used to be this way, but flooring, even on a conventional loan, there has to be flooring.
Define flooring, because
it can't just be like ripped up carpet and bare concrete, or like concrete floors are fine as long as they're finished, but like you couldn't have like plywood floor. Like if it's a pier and beam house, plywood floor, that's going to come back as an appraisal requirement.
It has to be very obviously finished because, like you said,
Yes,
concrete
obviously
flooring is
finished.
in. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
we have concrete floors in here.
Yeah, exactly. But they're coated and they feel like flooring. You know,
Yeah.
if it's not something that you would move into and put a bed on, like it's
Right.
probably not flooring.
Yeah,
Plywood is
so-
not flooring.
So those are the things that your agent is going to be talking to the lender about when it comes back is, did we meet value and are there any requirements?
Right.
Appraisal requirements are exactly that. They are requirements. They're
Mhm.
going to turn into a condition of the loan. So without those being made, the loan cannot fund.
Right.
So if there are requirements that come back on an appraisal and the seller's like, absolutely not going to fix these, our deal's probably dead in the water.
Probably.
Because we can't get that loan can't close.
Right.
So it's a little different. You know, the TRR repairs are negotiable.
Right.
Appraisal requirements are just that. They're going to be
done.
Required.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll do a whole other podcast sometime on what those things could look like.
Yeah, because there's so many intricate details. I mean, you can have things on your initial inspection report that also come up as appraisal requirements. And that's just the nature of it. And I think, you know, yes, get those done for your sake, but also like if you and your agent know like, hey, it doesn't have flooring and this is going to be your appraisal requirement, let's just go ahead and knock it out because we already know it's coming. Yeah, in most cases.
That comes with the listing agent being knowledgeable.
Right.
You know, is your listing agent familiar? You know, if I have a listing and I'm like, hey, listen, like this shed out back has really bad peeling paint. We just took an FHA loan. Let's go ahead and get that shed painted before the appraiser comes.
Right, yeah. I mean, you have some. I had one deal in particular where, you know, the house was in pretty decent shape. There were a few small things on the inside that were on the inspection report, but the appraisal came in and we had a peeling paint shed that was also like kind of lean inside. I was doing the stanky leg a little bit, you know, and we ended up having to completely remove it, either redo it or remove it from the property. And they came with a big old like roll-off dumpster.
And that gets tricky too, though, because did the appraiser give any value to the shed?
Right.
If the appraiser gave value to the shed and then you remove the shed, so anyway,
or what is the loan,
running trail?
Yeah, what is the loan type? Like, yeah, there's so many different. So I use that as an example, but there are things like if you know it's going to be a requirement,
just try to fix it ahead of time.
Right, and your buyer's agent might even know too if they're, you know, experienced and seasoned in the industry. Like there's certain things we walk into a house and we're like, yeah, that's going to be called out more than likely. So, and again, it's different for every loan type.
And I try to point those things out to buyers. I'm like, listen, I'm not an appraiser and I can't guarantee you that XYZ is going to come up on this appraisal, but these are things that I see possibly coming up. And I do the same at a listing appointment. I'm like, hey, you know, if we do take an FHA offer or VA, or we have, you know, a buyer with XYZ financing, these are things that potentially are going to come up as appraisal requirements. So if these are things you're comfortable going ahead and like knocking out, like,
let's do that.
Done. Yeah.
So requirements, we've touched a lot on those, but what about the actual value? What does it mean if it appraises too low or if it appraises too high? If we're at value,
there's no too high.
Yeah.
Too high is not a thing. But if it appraises over your contract price, congratulations, buyer. You're walking in with equity. We love that situation. That's our favorite situation.
Yes.
For a buyer.
Yes.
Now, if it comes in below our contract price, which honestly we're seeing more and more of right now, then we have to renegotiate because the lender isn't going to lend on more than that appraised value.
Right. So let's say or you are under contract for $150 and it appraises for $140. We have a $10,000 discrepancy there that someone's going to have to.
So we have
bridge
a few options. Seller comes down to $140 on the purchase price. Buyer comes up with $10,000.
Right.
Difference.
Right.
Maybe there are concessions that we were giving that now we're taking away. I mean, we can manipulate that several different ways. Or if there's no give, if the seller's like, absolutely, I won't go down. Buyer's like, I don't have $10,000.
Right.
Maybe our deal falls apart.
Right.
So we try to keep that from happening, but sometimes if the gap is too large, and the seller can't afford to come down to that number, it's inevitable. But just kind of depends.
I feel like you don't see that a whole lot, like with sellers, though, because if it's only going to appraise for so much, unless they're able to hold on to that property until it does make sense.
That's the thing, is if it appraised for that, so certain appraisals stick for 6 months. So if you have one of those loan types, you basically can't take another one of those for anything other than that price. So you're going to have to try to sell it to a buyer with a different loan type, get a second appraisal, and hope that, you know, and you can always fight the appraisals too. I've had some success with that in the past. Most of the time they're unsuccessful.
But again, you have to have like legitimate numbers to back up your rebuttal.
Yeah, you got to have your crap together. Yeah. I have made a couple. I've argued several in my career. Yeah. I have gotten denied on several arguments, but I've also won some arguments. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of depends.
I mean, everyone in this process is human, and there's so many different hands in it, from not only your buyer and seller, which are the two most important parts of this deal, but you have your respective agents, so buyer's agent, listing agent, your lender, your home inspector, your appraiser, maybe it's a roof inspector. I mean, there's so many different hands in it. The title companies, like,
we're all human. And
there are errors that can be made.
Absolutely. So, and same with the appraiser. I mean, one of the ones I had success fighting, he left, like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he left like something off, like a whole like part. And it was a pretty
substantial part of.
I think it ended up making like a $6,000 difference on the appraisal, so it was significant.
Right.
Which like, the appraisal still was low.
Right.
But it was less low.
It was less before. But you're like, hey, you know, it wasn't like we're arguing with him. Like, he was just like, hey, did you miss this?
And again, this comes into like, how are you communicating with these people? Because I just called him and I was like, hey, I'm going to submit the formal like request to have this redone, but I wanted to call you because I was looking at it and tell me if I'm incorrect, but it looks like you missed this.
Right.
And he was like, kind of, you know, like, oh, no. Well, let me look. And then he's like,
oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah, I did.
That's on me.
And he's like, I actually can't fix it until you submit that formal rebuttal with the lender anyway. So he's like, go ahead and do that. I'll get it taken care of.
Yeah.
But I could have called that appraiser and been jerk.
Right.
And he might have been like, I'm not fixing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's just so many moving parts. So again, that's why we've stressed a lot over the last 6 episodes and throughout today's episode is like, trust whoever you're doing your deal with, because that's what they're there for. The realtor that you chose to be your person. If
you chose them, then you should be able to trust them.
Yeah.
If you don't trust them, get a new agent.
Yes, because there's so many unknowns, and that's what's so intimidating about the home buying process for some people, is that they don't know what's going to happen. Well, we've done it hundreds of times in most cases. And this will kind of circle
back to, I mean, the beginning, and we didn't even touch on this, and we probably should have, but shop.
Yes. Shop your agent. Just like you shop the home.
They're not all created equal.
Yes.
And just because a customer, like, loves working with me and they think that I'm, like, the best agent ever, they might not have that feeling with you.
Right.
And vice versa.
Or vice versa.
Like, I may meet with a customer and I can tell, like, we're not vibing, and I'm like, listen, let me hook you up with, like, I think you're going to connect with Dylan. Like, Dylan's going to be able to speak your language.
Right.
Whatever. And so I try to do that too, you know, if I have a customer
and
that's coming to me.
And help them shop that. Because
and I'm like, listen, I'm probably not your person. Like, I can tell, like, you're not feeling super comfortable with me. Let me help you find someone.
For whatever reason.
Cool thing about, like, any office or agents in general, but our office is we have a wide variety of
there's so much diversity.
And styles. And so I'm like, hey, listen, I may not be that person for you.
Right.
You may not think I hung the moon like Sally does.
Right.
But I bet you're going to think Dylan is amazing.
Or Miranda or Shelby, whoever.
Yeah, like whoever. And so sometimes I can gauge the buyers by that. Like, hey, listen, I feel like you're going to connect with this person or that person.
Right.
Let me get you guys connected.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're getting into our final 2 steps here. Once we're past the appraisal, let's say we met value, which is some of the best news you can get. The better news is that you are beyond the value on the appraisal.
Equity.
So you have automatic equity going into that home. But you're doing your final walkthrough. after that. So what are things you guys are looking for with your buyers, like walking through the properties?
So did we have repairs? And then we're going to verify that those repairs are completed. Is the seller completely moved out? Did they tear anything up in the process? Just making sure that the house is in the condition we're willing to accept it in.
Yeah.
Were repairs made? Did anything get tore up?
Right.
Is it clean? That one's very...
is it clean is a big one.
Is it clean?
I mean, did a pipe burst throughout the middle of the night? Like,
yeah, I mean,
you never know.
Just making sure, because up until you sign those documents and they're filed at the courthouse, that transaction is not complete.
Yeah.
And at that point, we kind of skipped over, like, at that point, title work should be done.
Right.
Final, we're just talking about more what the buyer looks at.
What the buyer sees,
if we're clear to close, loan's completely clear, title work's done.
Yeah.
We've tied everything up with a bow.
Right. Absolutely.
Doing that final walkthrough.
And because you are going to be signing that paperwork in 24 hours. Usually. We try to do the final walkthrough
within 24 hours.
Yeah, pretty soon before that closing day. But, I mean, you are going to be accepting in that condition, and stuff could have happened. Maybe an animal got into the house and was tearing. I mean, what if there's
a raccoon in the attic and it dug through the ceiling? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? So walking through the property, making sure, like you said, those repairs that we did request from the seller are fixed and done properly.
Making sure those are completed.
Yeah, I mean,
if there are appraisal requirements, we already are going to know that those are completed because the appraiser has to go back out and clear them. But if it's just TRR repairs, we don't send the inspector back out necessarily.
Yeah.
Can, if that's important to you, or if it's something that you can't see with your own eyes. But that's when we're checking.
I was like, make sure you turn on all the light switches, test all the outlets if you
just
really want to. Like,
walkthrough.
Make sure that it's really good to go, because you are signing tomorrow or whenever it is.
And when you sign those documents, which is our final step, is signing the closing documents, you do sign a document that says you accept it in its current condition, which means right that second.
Correct. So that's why I always tell people, like, if we can do a final walkthrough the day of, that's perfect.
The only time that I don't love that is if we do the final walkthrough and then there's a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe you do two. I mean, if it's possible, you could do two walkthroughs. I just
usually try to do the day before, just in case there is we do run into an issue.
Because then you have enough time to say, hey, there's
hey,
a problem.
You didn't fix this.
Right.
Or, hey, the kitchen's flooded. Or, whatever. Hopefully it's not that extreme.
Right. But it does it. I'm sure it's happened somewhere.
Yes.
There's a reason that all these documents that you're going to sign at the closing table on closing day are there. Because there are some things that have happened in real estate over the years that I'm sure we're not even aware about that could happen.
Oh, we'll never know.
Yeah.
All things.
Yeah. So, I mean, just make sure all your things are good to go, and your agent will be there to help you look for what those things are.
I usually, if we did have TRR repairs, I'll bring that with, or at least have it pulled up on my phone.
I mean, at that point, as the buyer, you're going to know, because you're going to be like, okay, well, we asked you guys to fix this. Did they fix it? So, I mean, your buyer might even mention, hey, can we go walk through it just to make sure they did those things before you even mention a final walkthrough. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that that's even a thing. So,
or if the buyer's like, well, I don't care, I don't really want to do that, I'll go do it anyway.
Yeah, same here. I'll do the walkthrough just on their behalf, because there are things
just
that
to verify.
Happen. Yeah, and then you don't want them coming back to you later saying, well, hey, what the heck? There was a raccoon in the attic tearing up whatever, and,
Or they didn't fix what they said they were going to.
Yeah, or the faucet's still not working, or,
Or the house is trashed.
Yeah, there's holes in the drywall. There's so many things. But, yeah, final walkthrough, and then your closing day, we're just going to need you to bring driver's license in most cases. There's going to be certain things where...
usually driver's license, cashier's check.
Cashier's check. And again, it could be cashier's check. We can wire those funds sometimes. It's very dependent on where you're closing the deal, what title company you're using to close the deal. There's certain situations you might not need to bring money to the table in some cases.
Yeah, if you're not bringing any money, then you just show up with your driver's license.
Yeah, so driver's license, and then the seller in most cases is going to hand over keys once everything's finalized.
Most cases,
most cases.
Most commonly.
Sometimes, your buyer will sign on a different day than the seller. We try to get everyone to sign on the same day and close
sometimes
the same
it's
day.
not possible if somebody's not local.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But we'll make it work however we have to.
Yeah, there are situations even for the buyer that they're out of state. So one of my first deals I ever did, my buyer was relocating from California. And so we had to send the closing documents 3 days early, FedEx, to him, to a notary that was there. And there were some discrepancies because the notaries state to state work differently, which I won't bore you with the details because that's stuff that we deal with. But
it was a hurdle and you navigated it.
It was a hurdle. And anyway, he was able to sign his closing docs completely remote. I mean, he didn't have to come out here until, I don't even think he really saw the property until a month after we closed. We did all virtual showings. I did walkthroughs for him. Like, he had an amazing amount of trust in me, which was, really flattering. But, yeah, I mean, he was able to do that whole deal remote, and sign all his documents, wire his earnest money and his closing check, like his cashier's check. And we made it super easy for him, but it was because he was upfront about what he wanted, and he had that trust in knowing that, hey, we're going to make sure this is a deal that's good to go. Yeah. So closing day is the best day of the transaction for everybody involved, because we're buying the new house. We got all the way to the end. We fixed all the issues that were present, because there are issues. No matter what deal, I'm like, if it's
I always tell people, I'm like, the problems aren't if, they're when, and just, it's how we navigate them.
Yeah, that was exactly where I was going. So, bring your driver's license, come ready to sign. You might be there for 15 minutes if you have a really awesome lender that can pre-sign docs. You might be there for an hour. I've had our closings last 4 hours, but let's hope that's not the case every time.
Bad.
Yeah. So after that, you're good to go. You hand over the keys. The process doesn't stop there, because you're going to be in communication with your lender still. You're going to be in communication with your realtor still.
Everything closed out. You got to get utilities on.
Right. And a good agent's going to help you do that.
Most cases, your agent doesn't go away. I always tell people when they sign like the closing acknowledgement release, I'm like, you don't really have to release me. You can keep me.
You thought you could get rid of me that easy?
Yeah.
Like
some of my clients are my friends now, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're helping them with, maybe you supply moving boxes as an agent, and, you're helping them with their move. A lot of times we are selling a house to buyers that they're also moving from their previous home at the same time. Like, they're closed on the first one that morning.
So let's navigate that situation.
Yeah. So, like, how do we get utilities turned on for them? One of my favorite things is to order pizza for those people, because they're already wrecked. They've spent all day moving.
They're tired. They've
sat at 2 different closing tables at 2 different title agencies. They're just ready to be done. And you order pizza for them, and it shows up unannounced, and they're like, holy crap, we didn't even think about dinner, at all. So we don't even know how to use this new stove, whatever it is. So, that's a thing that I like to do for those people. But anyway, you've made it to the end. We're going to try to help you with who do we call for utilities, or, whatever. There's so many different things. It's so specific, because you could be buying land, you could be buying a town or a home in town.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to wrap it up for our episode. We almost rambled for about an hour on that topic, which is awesome.
That's a long topic.
Yeah, hopefully you guys saw some value from this. Again, we have all these clips and replays on TikTok. We're uploading them to YouTube Shorts. So if there were some details of this conversation that you didn't want to sit through another hour to find, those clips are going out roughly every day now. So make sure to check out our previous episodes too, so you don't miss out on that information, because there's some good stuff in there as well. Next week, we're going to talk about the seller side.
All right.
So what happens before the listings come up that all the buyers get to go look at. So what we can do to try to get people top dollar and all those things. So again, check out our previous videos if you haven't already. And thanks for tuning in. As always, we will try to see you guys next week.
Bye.